Alternative universes fascinate me. Much of my content revolves around them. Exploring the what ifs, imagining how small divergences could reshape entire worlds, especially within the Fallout universe. Although many games can be considered alternate universes, there are really just a few games that run far with this idea. Fallout comes to mind as an obvious example. Wolfenstein: The New Order places this idea front and center. And one more game? Singularity. Some of the people today probably don't know or remember this game from 2010. Upon first look, it's really just a product of its time. A brown Call of Duty-like shooter with some influences from popular games of the time. But this game has such a unique aesthetic and setting that I wanted to talk about it. The game is set in a timeline in which the Soviet Union never collapsed, and it's still standing in 2010. By the way, this video is going to contain spoilers for an obscure game from 14 years ago. Just so you know. Singularity is in many ways a fusion of Call of Duty, BioShock, and Half-Life. Throughout this video, I will break down how these influences appear. Also, I would not be surprised if in any way it was an inspiration for Machine Games' Wolfenstein: The New Order, as both games feature large 20th century superpowers conquering the world and establishing a new world authoritarian government, something that is the center of the story in Wolfenstein, and more of a background thing in Singularity, as the main point of the game is a time manipulation technology, aka the Half-Life grav gun that can allow time travel. There are more similarities between these games and Singularity, such as at different time periods within the game we face the same enemy but with altered equipment and overall look. For example, in Wolfenstein, we start in 1946 and the game itself continues into the 60s. We see the advancement of the Germans from 1946 to 1960. Their equipment, the way they look, is completely different. It's a small thing. Same is in Singularity. We have a similar thing going on when we jump from past to present. There is no concrete evidence that Singularity inspired in any way Wolfenstein. This is pure speculation on my part. But when I was playing the game, the similarity was strong. The style, the retro-futuristic tech, design and monumentality of the Soviet Union here is very similar to that of the Reich in the New Order. Big monumental buildings of concrete imposing the will of the regime.
This is true of the Nazis. They're not lacking in vanity.
This almost makes me wish for a game like Wolfenstein set in a world captured by the USSR, something that maybe could be expanded on if Singularity had a sequel. The Wolfenstein thing is my speculation, but this is no longer speculation. Many elements in the game are unmistakably inspired by Half-Life, and the influence is very on the nose. Also, the Call of Duty DNA is felt very heavily in this game, something that is not surprising as Raven Software made the game after all. The game has the style and the atmosphere of Black Ops 1. I would go as far as to say most of the game can be mistaken for a Black Ops Zombies map, and that is never a bad thing in my eyes. Let's go over what actually happens in the story. The premise of Singularity is that the Soviet Union conquered the world after the research and development of the TMD, the Time Manipulation Device, a device that is very similar in function to the Half-Life's gravity gun, although it has the ability to turn back time on certain objects within the world, something that is used to solve puzzles in the game and also as a plot device. The TMD allowed the USSR to capture the entire world in a way. The game itself begins when an electromagnetic surge from an uninhabited island called Katorga 12, once held by the Soviet Union, damages an American spy satellite. A group of US Recon Marines, which includes protagonist Captain Nathaniel Renko, goes to investigate. Another surge disables the unit's helicopters and it crash lands on Katorga 12. The protagonist Captain Renko wakes up on the docks of Katorga 12. This is where the influence of Bioshock can be felt, as monumental and brutal looking communist structures and statues impose themselves across the island, flags of the Soviet Union waving everywhere, with a large statue hand gripping a sickle can be seen emerged from the ocean. It also helps tie in Bioshock because it's set at night, there's the ocean, there's the statues, similar to how you come to Rapture. This might seem like a nitpick, but the game really draws a lot of inspiration from Bioshock and you will see further. Also, I would not think the US military would send Recon Marines to a mission like that. They would probably send some tier 1 unit like Delta or something like that. Walking around the dock, Renko enters an abandoned greeting center for those who were unlucky enough to be assigned at Katorga 12. The game is surprisingly interactable, as you can interact with phones, microphones, and more elements in the scenery.
E99 is a valuable element that can only be found on Katorga 12. Here it is mined at a depth of over 1 kilometer underground.
And there are some ghostly apparitions and strange creatures lurking about. The beginning section of the game really lets you walk around a bit and explore, as the trend of the time was, there is a bunch of Bioshock-like audio logs scattered filling in the lore. In the same greeting center, there's an instructional video.
The threat from the west is ever present, and here on the isolated island of Katorga 12, we are fighting that threat. The glorious work we are doing will change the world and keep our way of life safe from those who seek to do us harm. Soviet scientists have discovered the answer to our hopes and dreams, the element E99. E99 is a rare element only found on Katorga 12. There are many different ways to help the efforts of Mother Russia here on Katorga 12. Your family will live well on the island, and your children will attend schools offering the very best Russian education. Scientific research is the largest division on the island, advancing agriculture, industry, medicine, and the military. Processing E99 is an important part of the island's function, creating the metal, gas, and other forms of E99 we use every day. A strong military presence is important on Katorga 12 to ensure the safety of the island. A workforce that will make every Russian proud is the backbone of the island. From the rail yard to the docks, every worker supports the motherland. All of your contributions will go toward achieving the ultimate goals of our work here on Katorga 12. We must stand as one against the forces of the West. You are the lucky one, selected for service on Katorga 12. We have moved your family for your convenience. We must now stand together for Mother Russia.
Very much in the style of Bioshock, once more, or even Fallout 4. Although the cartoon style is very Western, I don't think the Soviet Union would go with such a cartoony style. They would probably have something a bit more Soviet looking.
We now return to popular Russian cartoon Shoe and Shoeless.
Shoe and shoeless. One is meaningless without the other.
Katorga 12 was a research island established by the Soviets in the 50s. They founded this place in order to research a mysterious hyper-unstable element named E99. This is basically Singularity's version of the plasmids from Bioshock, but different. E99 is the miracle element that also ends up destroying the island and mutating its inhabitants. Same as the Adam substance from Bioshock, the substance that allowed the creation of the plasmids. the same miracle substance that ended up destroying and mutating everybody around Rapture. As I said before, the game has also a very distinct Treyarch Call of Duty feel to it, as the game's surroundings feel like they were made from various Call of Duty Zombies maps from back in the day. While Renko is walking about in the abandoned buildings, another energy blast happens and transports Renko into the same building but is populated by people and is on fire. As he walks around the burning building, he arrives just in time to save one of the people from the fire. After that, Renko is sent back to the present, and the room we were just in has changed. And now, instead of a big Stalin head statue, it has a completely different statue erected. It is of the men we saved back in the burning building. A lot of small details have changed within the room as well, as this small act in the past made a big difference in the present. We discovered that his name is Demichev, and it seems that he has become rather successful. Also, a quick note on the name Katorga. From what I've seen, it's not really a good term and is used mostly on forced labor camps. This island doesn't feel like a forced labor camp, as in the notes we can read that this island is just a workplace like any other, just a research facility, and that's it. People here come with their families, there's a school for the kids, there's all the facilities for a normal life pretty much, as these people are just workers and not prisoners of any kind. After walking about some more, admiring the architecture, and eventually finding a pistol, the first enemy of the game appears. A sort of a mutant. The game sets a horror tone for its first encounters. As you walk around through abandoned apartments, with bodies laying around, hearing sounds of ghosts, and sounds of somebody walking outside and on the walls. These creatures turn out to be not that big of a problem, and in the later game they pose no threat whatsoever, as there is actually a variety of mutants throughout the game. Some that we encounter later are able to teleport and absorb more damage. These mutants are more human looking than the first ones, and they seem to wear a torn uniform, with Spetsnaz written on their backs. First thought was they were simply accidentally mutated soldiers, but as we see later in the game, it's not really the case. As we enter a school, we see more ghostly apparitions, and we're also able to gather more information on what was happening on Katorga 12 at the time. In the school cafeteria, we find the following note. Experimental doses were given to students of the school. In other notes, we can read about the initial effects it had on the children, where some of the kids started expressing severe anger issues. We also eventually meet with our buddy from the chopper, after fighting some monsters and some soldiers that suddenly rolled up on us on a BTR and on helicopters. We eventually get captured by them. These do not look Soviet at all, and our partner even remarked before on them looking different than in the brief that was shown to them before the operation commenced.
The uniform's a little different from what I've seen, but this is definitely a Russian soldier.
They look more advanced than our team, which is supposed to be on par technologically with the Soviets. But it seems Soviet tech here surpasses anything the West has. Even the weapons look very weird and unusual, with a lot of extruding parts and almost alien-like designs. I can once again draw a parallel to Wolfenstein 4 years later, where the weapons there had a similar design philosophy to them, with a lot of extruding parts and alternated things and grooves and whatever that make them feel a little bit different. The Soviet weapons in Singularity don't even look remotely Soviet. If we look at the weapon that our partner holds at the start of the game, it looks like a very generic AR style rifle. If we compare it to what the Soviets have. An important note to make is that we have access to weapons only after the energy blast that sent us into the past where we saved Demichev. It seems more has changed than some decorations around Katorga 12. Anyway, we are captured.
Name, rank, and serial number. That's all you get from us, Ivan. Check your Geneva Convention handbook.
I did away with that little inconvenience years ago. See?
With the soldiers, there's the man we saved from the burning building. It is Demichev. He then teaches our partner what is called the Geneva suggestion.
That's better. How is it you haven't aged a day in 50 years? There is only one explanation. The TMD, where is it?
Run, Rango. Head straight through this hallway.
We eventually get rescued by Alex Vance.
Dr. Freeman, I presume.
Catherine. A member of the resistance group called Mir 12. This group consists of two people, Alex and Eli. Catherine and some guy named Borisov. Catherine shows us the cool presentation they made, telling us more about them. The motion graphics we see throughout the game are very similar to the loading screens that we get in Call of Duty World at War or Black Ops 1 even, showing the Call of Duty DNA in this game even more. Demichev ended up ruling the world. He was able to conquer it with the help of the E99 element. Mir 12 believes everything points to a facility or structure named the Singularity, and Branko specifically is somehow able to put an end to Demichev's reign using the time manipulation device developed by Viktor Borisov. Borisov was killed by Demichev in the past in a lab accident, quote unquote. So we must acquire the device and save Borisov. Throughout the game we jump from past to present, trying to avert the domination of the world by Demichev. This is probably the most interesting part of the game, seeing the locations, the enemies in the past and the present, where we can see Katorga 12 as a fully functioning island with clean labs and working equipment, and then seeing it again in the future in ruin. While going to our destination, we encounter apparitions and ghosts of the workers and inhabitants of the island, showing us their tragic final moments. When we finally arrive to the facility where the TMD is located, we can gather more lore about what happened. The moment Demichev rose to any significant power, he ordered to start experimenting on humans.
This is the work log of Dr. Viktor Borisov. My suspicions that E99 could alter time are proving true. In our last experiment, a corn seed grew to maturity in just 3 days. The implications are staggering. Dr. Demichev has urged me to test E99's effects on humans. I, of course, refused.
Something that Borisov was opposed to. We see a ghost of Borisov run into a chamber and we follow him. In this facility in 1955, we also can see the blue mutants with torn uniform inside of some kind of pods, being actively made. A similar thing can be seen in Wolfenstein, as the mecha soldiers were also made similarly. We arrive at a very Half-Life-esque underground lab, with the first prototype of the Grove gun, the TMD. This is supposed to be a secret makeshift underground facility. I don't know how Borisov installed these massive doors and built these arches. Anyway, we get the TMD. We now are able to manipulate time on certain objects containing the E99 element. We travel back in time and fight a bunch of normal-looking Soviet soldiers for a change. We arrive at the door and see Demichev and Borisov having a disagreement. Demichev points the gun at Borisov and we barge in and shoot Demichev, saving Borisov. As I said, this is the first time we fight Soviet soldiers back in 1955, and it's a pretty refreshing change of scenery, as we can see how far the Soviet army has evolved since 1955 in this universe. Even though we shot Demichev, he survived. And the only thing that has changed in the present is that Borisov is alive. We can even see Demichev's face scarred from the gun wound we inflicted when he captured us in the start of the game. Also a thing to note, our partner before getting shot told him about checking the Geneva Convention, but Demichev is ruling the world, and the Geneva Convention probably doesn't exist anymore.
Check your Geneva Convention handbook.
I did away with that little inconvenience years ago.
Demichev wanted to recreate the TMD, but without Borisov it was impossible. The Singularity Demichev built didn't hold and was destroyed. Instead focused on research and development of arms using the E99 element. And that's why probably all the guns that the Soviets wield look so different. It's because E99. Demichev conquered the world and established himself as the world leader. Borisov's plan is to go back and get turkeys off the menu. I was just checking if you're following this important lore from 2010. Okay, he went back to destroy the Singularity before it can cause all the problems it caused. With an E99 bomb, we retrieved the bomb from an old ship that carried it as cargo. We return in time to plant it inside a device known as the Cooker, a giant structure where in the past isotopes of E99 were created. We plant the bomb in 1955, and in 2010 the Cooker is destroyed. But we see a writing on the ground that can be revealed via the TMD. This writing tells us that blowing up the rice cooker didn't really change anything. These types of messages can be seen across the game in multiple times, telling us to stop or foretelling us events that will transpire. For example, it tells us that Katie, will die when escaping the ship, something that ended up happening.
Well, I tried to stop her at the dock, but she wouldn't listen to me. She wanted to draw the soldiers' gunfire to make sure you escaped with the E99 bomb. She was shot just as the ship started sinking. Catherine is dead, but we cannot allow her sacrifice.
At this time, we still don't know who leaves the messages. The air fryer has been destroyed, and it still hasn't changed anything. We head with Borisov to the Citadel, the Singularity Tower I mean, as past and present mix together as we get closer to the Singularity Tower. As the Singularity Tower is in the center of all the time warping, hence we see soldiers from 1955 as well as modern ones. At this stage we upgrade our power glove with the last power up and make it blue. Really reminds me of something. The blue TMD is now capable of blasting enemies to Kingdom Come with one blast from close range. Similar to the blue gravity gun from the final chapter of Half-Life 2, where we fight our way up to the Citadel. We eventually arrive at the Singularity's core and travel back in time and destroy the facility with a fully charged E99 bomb. It is implied that this explosion triggered the destruction of the Singularity and mutated the island's population. Possibly it's the first flare we saw in the opening cutscene. We trigger the bomb and return to 2010. We find out the facility is still the same as if nothing has happened. We find Demichev holding Borisov hostage behind us. Demichev revealed that he rebuilt the facility after the bomb was detonated, presumably at another location. We shoot Demichev a non-lethal shot, freeing Borisov in the process. Borisov figured out what was wrong, believing that the facility wasn't the problem. The real problem was Demichev himself. When Renko saved Demichev at the beginning of the game, he rewrote history. Demichev also revealed that while Renko was saving him from the fire, another Renko was trying to prevent himself from saving Demichev. This was the man who yelled at Renko to let Demichev die before being crushed by debris. Demichev gave an offer to grant Renko unlimited power if he gives him the TMD. Borisov protests and tells Renko to go back in time using the Singularity to power the TMD and shoot Renko from the past to turn history back to normal. The player is left with a choice, resulting in 4 endings. If Renko shoots Demichev, he goes back in time to stop himself from saving Demichev in the first place. In order to do so, he decides to kill his past self. In the epilogue, the game starts again from the very beginning, and Renko is sitting inside the helicopter that is searching the area. A noticeable difference this time that we are no longer called Sparta 2-1 on the comms, but this time we're called Hammer 2-1.
Spartan Team Titan 1 actual, you are now entering Russian airspace. Proceed with caution.
Roger that, Titan 1. Continuing on this vector. ETA to target 3 minutes.
Brass must be scared shitless if they're...
Hammer 2-1, Red Fleet actual, you are now entering Katorga 12 airspace.
Roger that, Red Fleet. Continuing on this vector. ETA to target 3 minutes.
The timeline shifted, and the mission is soon aborted and declared to be a false alert. They fly past a giant statue of Borisov. Renko looks at his left arm where the TMD was, possibly has a faint memory of the alternate timeline he created. It is implied that Borisov recovered the TMD and used it to rise to power in the USSR himself, but has not conquered the world as the US military still exists. If Renko instead shoots Borisov, he and Demichev rule the world together. After some time, Demichev begins to fear Renko's growing power, and a new Cold War develops between the lands ruled by Renko and those ruled by Demichev. If Renko shoots both Demichev and Borisov, Renko allows the world to fall into chaos. Later, he rises up as a new world leader, using the TMD to assert his power. And that's about it for the plot. For a short shooter game, the plot ain't too bad. I would say better than most games that come out today. Unfortunately, Singularity was the last nail in the coffin of Raven Software. The game did not sell well, it flopped. And in turn, mass layoffs were made within the company. Following that, Activision doomed them to an eternity of making Call of Duty multiplayer maps. An unfortunate turn of events, as there aren't many games willing to explore these interesting ideas. Another unfortunate event is the slow, agonizing death of the new Wolfenstein series. They're not new anymore, yeah? Most recent ones. The first game had a more serious tone and more grounded and respectful approach to the characters presented, where in the sequels this aspect became worse and worse, and finally Wolfenstein has died. Maybe there's an alternate timeline where Singularity became a hit and a mainline Activision title with a big fleshed out universe. Who knows? That's it for this video. I hope it was enjoyable. I know it's different. Leave me comments, tell me if it was any good, if you clicked off. If you clicked off in the middle of it, I understand. Thank you. Goodbye.